See," said Karenin, "that there is any final limit to man's power of self-modification." "There is none," said Fowler, walking forward and sitting down upon the parapet in front of Karenin so that he could see his face. "There is no absolute limit to either knowledge or power. I hope you do not tire yourself talking." "I am interested," said Karenin. "I suppose in a little while men will cease to be tired. I suppose in a little time you will give us something that will hurry away the fatigue products and restore our jaded tissues almost at once. This old machine may be made to run without slacking or cessation." "That is possible, Karenin, but there is much to learn." "And all the hours we give to digestion and half living, don't you think there will be some way of saving these?" Fowler nodded assent. "And then sleep again. When man with his blazing lights made an end to night in his towns and houses, it is only 100 years or so ago that was done, then it followed he would presently resent his 8 hours of uselessness. Shan't we presently take a tabloid, or lie in some field of force that will enable us to do with an hour or so of slumber, and rise refreshed again?" Frobisher and Amir Ali have done work in that direction. "And then the inconveniences of age and those diseases of the system that come with years, steadily you drive them back, and you lengthen and lengthen the years that stretch between the passionate tumults of youth and the contractions of senility. Man who used to weaken and die as his teeth decayed, now looks forward to a continually lengthening, continually fuller term of years, and all those parts of him that once gathered evil against him, the vestigial structures and odd treacherous corners of his body, you know better and better how to deal with. You carve his body about, and leave it remodeled and unscarred. The psychologists are learning how to mold minds, to reduce and remove bad complexes of thought and motive, to relieve pressures and broaden ideas, so that we are becoming more and more capable of transmitting what we have learned, and preserving it for the race. The race, the racial wisdom, science, gather power continually to subdue the individual man to his own end. Is that not so?" Fowler said that it was, and for a time he was telling Karenin of new work that was in progress in India and Russia. "And how is it with heredity?" asked Karenin. Fowler told them of the mass of inquiry accumulated and arranged by the genius of Techin, who is beginning to define clearly the laws of inheritance, and how the sex of children, and the complexions and many of the parental qualities could be determined. "He can actually do? It is still, so to speak, a mere laboratory triumph," said Fowler. "But tomorrow it will be practicable." "You see!" cried Karenin, turning a laughing face to Rachel and Edith, "while we have been theorizing about men and women, here is science getting the power for us to end that old dispute forever. If woman is too much for us, we'll reduce her to a minority, and if we do not like the type of men and women, we'll have no more of it. These old bodies, these old animal limitations, all this earthly inheritance of gross inevitabilities, falls from the spirit of man, like a shriveled cocoon from an imago. And for my own part, when I hear of these things, I feel like a wet, crawling new moth that still fears to spread its wings. Because where do these things take us?" "Beyond humanity," said Khan. "No," said Karenin, "we can still keep our feet upon the earth that made us, but the air no longer imprisons us. This round planet is no longer chained to us like the ball of a galley slave. In a little while, men who will know how to bear the strange gravitations, the altered pressures, the attenuated, unfamiliar gases, and all the fearful strangeness of space, will be venturing out from this earth. This ball will be no longer enough for us. Our spirit will reach out. Cannot you see how that little argosy will go glittering up into the sky, twinkling and glittering smaller and smaller until the blue swallows it up? They may succeed out there, they may perish, but other men will follow them. It is as if a great window opened, said Karenin. Section 9. As the evening drew on, Karenin and those who were about him went upon the roof of the buildings, so that they might the better watch the sunset, and the flushing of the mountains and the coming of the afterglow. They were joined by two of the surgeons from the laboratories below, and presently by a nurse who brought Karenin refreshment in a thin glass cup. It was a cloudless, windless evening under the deep blue sky, and far away to the north glittered two biplanes on the way to the observatories on Everest, 200 miles distant over the precipices to the east. The little group of people watched them pass over the mountains and vanish into the blue, and then for a time they talked of the work that the observatory was doing. From that they passed to the whole process of research about the world, and so Karenin's thoughts returned again to the mind of the world, and the great future that was opening upon man's imagination. He asked the surgeons many questions upon the detailed possibilities of their science, and he was keenly interested and excited about the things they told him. And as they talked, the sun touched the mountains, and became very swiftly a blazing and indented hemisphere of liquid flame, and sank. Karenin looked blinking at the last quivering rim of incandescence, and shaded his eyes and became silent. Presently he gave a little start. "What?" asked Rachel Borkin. "I had forgotten," he said. "What had you forgotten?" "I had forgotten about the operation tomorrow. I have been so interested as man today, that I have nearly forgotten Marcus Karenin. Marcus Karenin must go under your knife tomorrow, Fowler, and very probably Marcus Karenin will die." He raised his slightly shriveled hand. "It does not matter, Fowler. It scarcely matters even to me. For indeed it is Karenin who has been sitting here and talking. Is it rather not a common mind, Fowler, that is played about between us? You and I and all of us have added thought to thought, but the thread is neither you nor me. What is true we all have. When the individual has altogether brought himself to the test and winnowing of expression, then the individual is done. I feel as though I had already been emptied out of that little vessel, that Marcus Karenin, which in my youth held me so tightly and completely. Your beauty, dear Edith, and your broad brow, dear Rachel, and you, Fowler, with your firm and skillful hands, are now almost as much to me as this hand that beats the arm of my chair, and as little me. And the spirit that desires to know, the spirit that resolves to do, that spirit that lives and has talked in us today, lived in Athens, lived in Florence, lives on, I know, forever. And you, old sun, with your sword of flame searing these poor eyes of Marcus, for the last time of all, beware of me. You think I die, and indeed I am only taking off one more coat to get at you. I have threatened you for 10,000 years, and soon I warn you I shall be coming, when I am altogether stripped and my disguises thrown away. Very soon now, old sun, I shall launch myself at you, and I shall reach you and I shall put my foot on your spotted face, and tug you about your fiery locks. One step I shall take to the moon, and then I shall leap at you. I've talked to you before, old sun. I've talked to you a million times,